The thing about being a young person, isn't it, is that we have the energy of the day, but often we lack the context of the moment. It's often about how we frame what we see. And how we frame what we see infers how we act in the time. Everything you look at is a function of how you perceive it. And there are different types of perspectives, and how you see things is how you act in front of the things that you see. Think about it this way. There are different types of sights, right? If you think about it, but there's different types of sights. There's things that are in plain sight, things that are hindsight, and often hindsight gives you insight. Isn't it? Let me break it down. Hindsight is the stuff we know based on what we've experienced. The expression reads, hindsight is 20/20. The idea is once you've seen it happen, you can always think, I would have seen that happen, but you didn't. That's the point. Plain sight is the stuff right in front of you. Insight is based on the stuff that I've given you. What do you know? And what do you learn from what you know? But all of these, hindsight, insight, and plain sight, still only speak about how you frame the context, the environment that you're in. See, for the young man I'm speaking about, a person I had the privilege of being mentored by, Dr. Richard Maponya, he couldn't live in the world of hindsight, insight, and foresight. He had to live in the world of foresight, the world that was coming. So what do you believe about the world that's coming? What do you see in terms of the opportunities that are going to be presented to you? Are you preparing yourself every day as a young person? Here's the thing about resilience that people miss. Resilience is not about your ability to endure the moment. Resilience is about your ability to endure the moment because of your belief about the future. See, if you miss the second part of that statement, then enduring the moment isn't resilience, it's suffering. And you can suffer in perpetuity under the illusion of preparation without seeing a destination. So, foresight is what we believe is around the corner. What are the opportunities that are going to be presented to you and I as young people? Richard Maponya's journey started 100 years ago. But even by the 70s, the countries he was still living in wasn't exactly the kind of country where you had ample opportunities as a young black person. It has to be about how you're framing the moment. And how you frame the moment is what you choose to see. Personal story. So it's about 9 years ago, and I have this vision, this idea, this dream that I would love to start a fund to finance small business people of color. It's just an idea. It's a dream. And so we set about doing it. The first 5 years of that journey was as close to hell as anything I've ever experienced. First, the environment you're in is not built for you to succeed in it. Second, because what you're doing is new, there's no rules. And third, if there are no rules for what you're doing, then how do you know you're not breaking the rules that already exist? See, the journey to setting new boundaries, the journey to constantly pushing the envelope, the journey to constantly and consistently achieving what's new is often about doing things that have never been done before. And to do that means you have to break the rules you didn't even know exist. So as a firm, we did. We broke all the rules around licensing, all the rules around capital distribution, all the rules around how do you perform a due diligence. We broke all the rules. Today they study us and they call it innovation. Back then, they chastised us and said we're operating outside of the rules framework. The only reason we kept going was because we had a particular view of the future. We saw things as they were going to be, not as they were. So if you're a young person living today and you're living for yourself and for this moment, you're completely missing the point. You're missing the opportunity. You're missing what's around the corner, what's around the curve. Let's talk a bit about corners and curves. The main premise of my economic argument is that as young people today, our premise of relevance and resilience has to be about what we see around the corner of opportunities today. And that if you imagine as a young person it's going to be easy, you're sorely mistaken. It's going to be hard. It's going to take time. And all systems have a natural inbuilt resistance mechanism. Nothing changes by itself. Change is forced. Having made my economic argument, let's look at the social argument now. Just follow me on this. Humor me. See if it works. See, the way exclusion works is it builds structures of exclusion and systems of oppression. I promise you this is important, so follow me. Every single node of exclusion in an environment is built into a structure. That's how it works. The structures aren't always biased, certainly not at the face of it. If you look at the structure, you wouldn't understand why that structure is necessarily biased. So if you read the book, The Memoirs of Verwoerd, the architect of our past, apartheid, he writes in the book very eloquently about how to construct these structures of exclusion in such a way that it's difficult, even for the excluded, to deconstruct them. See, here's the way the South African system is built. On the one end, you have the leafy suburbs, and on the other, you have the townships. Next to the suburbs, you have the CBD, the Central Business District. Next to every single township, you have an industrial area. There's only one township in South Africa, in fact two, that break this construct. The first is Alex. That's because the rate at which Alex grew meant that the township grew into the industrial area. And the second is Diepsloot. And the only reason that is because Diepsloot was basically started after 1994. But every single township in South Africa that existed pre-94 exists right next to an industrial area. Why do you think that is? Because the structure of exclusion said this: take the black African person and put them in the township. Give them a level of education that is subpar. That meant the only jobs open to them would be factory jobs in the industrial areas. What that meant is you could pay them less than decent wages. If you lower the costs of production, you make the South African economy competitive, which meant it could supply goods into the CBD and sell those goods from the CBD into the leafy suburbs. That's the way the system was built. That's the structure. So when you drive into every township in South Africa today and you see each and every single one of those factories on your way in, that's not there by natural market design. It's built that way.